So we'll start to get into the game-specific stuff with Max. At this point, you know how to bevel things. You're starting to figure out how to box model objects. Box modeling means you start with a box and you pull out new geometry, which we'll be doing a lot of next week. But what we want to do right now is go over how you would... I'm isolating this selection, so I right-clicked on the object and hit isolate. But we're going to go over how you would create parts and pieces to our tank here, but so that they're all one single object. Right now, this entire piece that I'm spinning around is one solid piece. So think of it as kind of being formed out of a sheet of plastic. There's nothing inside of it. It's not made up of individual little primitives. It's not glued together from different parts. It's all been extruded from a box. The parts that weren't extruded have been added to it and connected to it. And when we do that, it's usually common that we have to make polygons or fill in holes. So what I'm going to do is we'll start with just the basic idea of making a polygon. I'm going to go over here. This is an edit poly. I'm going to flatten this down so that it's what you're used to seeing. Edit poly. And I'm just going to select this polygon and delete it by hitting the delete key on my keyboard. And you can see that I can see right through into the inside of the tank. Now, I can make a new polygon simply by going to Polygon, Create, and then by holding down the left mouse button, I'm clicking. This is a lot like Target Weld. Left mouse button again, left mouse button, and back around, and now I've made a new polygon. And that polygon is the same as the old one, and it still is part of this single piece of geometry that I've got. Now, the question is, why would you want to do that? Well, let's take a look at how we would attach objects to it, much like what I've done back here with these spherical objects is what we're going to cover. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and make a, let's make a cylinder, not a cylinder. Actually, what I want to do is an oil tank, one of these oil tanks here. I'm going to jump back into my main screen here, and I'm going to pull out an oil tank. An oil tank can look like anything from an oil tank to a capsule, and I'm moving my mouse up and down to make the setting. So all I did was I dragged the oil tank out, and then I've dragged my mouse up and down to make the settings. Now in this case, I'm going to make the oil tank pretty basic, so I'm going to make it have 6 sides so that it's easy to deal with. Right now, these are two different objects. That's one object. This is the other object. I'm going to place this oil tank right over. I'm going to end up deleting this polygon right here. Now, actually, I'll tell you what. I'm going to, let's put it right in the center over this piece here in the center. That's a little bit more easy. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it over this top piece here. That's a little bit easier for us to deal with. And I've maneuvered it over the top in my viewports. And if I zoom in here, we'll see that it's right over the top. I'm going to zoom in to my maximize viewport. Okay, and we've got it hovering right over this bunch of polygons here, and I've got a flat polygon down here. What I need to do is select the tank body, go to where it's editable poly, and I'm going to look for this attach button. I'm going to hit that attach button. I'm going to attach this to it. Now what that has done is it's made, turn off the attach button, it's made this whole object into the body and the cylinder are the same object. Even though they're not touching each other, they're the same object, where before they were considered two objects. I'm now going to delete the polygons below it, and I'm going to delete the polygon at the bottom of the little capsule piece. You can see it selected there. Okay, so both of those are deleted. You can see the holes there as I rotate this around. Alright, now I'm going to go to border. We haven't used border before. When I click on border, what it's going to do is select the whole opening. A border is an open edge. And you can see that it selected the whole border. Let me zoom in a little bit here, and you can see that it selected that whole edge there, and then I held down Control and selected this one. So two borders are selected. And then I'm going to go to Bridge and hit the Bridge button. And what happens is it's now sealed that whole section together and made my mesh nice and optimized, at least mostly optimized. And I now have a one single piece. Now the opposite to that, which we don't really want to do, would be if we, I'll show you what we don't want to do. Go to oil tank, drag out another oil tank here. Oops, there we go. Put it right here. Then I'll go back up here to box. Oops, maximized my viewport too quickly. Let's do it over here. Would be this. And what we've done here is we've basically pieced together the regular object, the one we started with, a box, and a cylinder. And even though it looks like they're all lined up right, even if I was to change them all the same color, so the color doesn't have anything to do with it. So even if I change them to the same color as my tank, I'll just grab them over here, that doesn't change the fact, wrong color, that they're three separate objects. We don't want that. Games don't do well with intersecting objects. It never really knows what object's on top of the other. And you can see here, these are separate objects, where this one is all the same object because we used the bridge feature and we attached it. Now, even if you attach these pieces, they're still intersecting. Let me put that back down. So let's say we even attach these. Click on this, attach, and we attach them. They're still, we can go to element, and there's still three separate elements. There's one element, two elements, three elements. If I click on this one, see, it's all one element. An element, which is the fifth piece of editable poly, is the separate parts that were there originally. And so this is all one element. These guys here are two elements. Even though they're attached to the original piece, but they're all, this is one element, these guys are two elements. We don't want the two elements. We want that. Now, if we want to move this piece over and we want to manipulate it a little bit more, we can go back to polygon and select all the polygons in this particular piece. See that? And we can detach them. So where before we attached them, we can detach. You can give it a name if you want. It's now a separate object. We're not done with it. Turn off editable poly and click on your new object. Hit mirror, which is this button right here. And then hit copy, because we want two of them, and find the right axis that it needs to flip on. And in my case, I can't see the other part. Let me scoot out here a little bit. I'm having trouble seeing it. There we go. And which way do we want? We want, it looks like the y-axis. Yep. And copy. You can see now I have two of them. And then use the offset tool And the offset tool works better if you do it in increments. Place it right over where we're going to merge this. Actually, I'm going to move it over a little bit because I got to delete these polygons. Unclick that, go over here, click polygon again, click these two polygons, click element, whoops, unclick. I'm just clicking in a gray area, click this guy, and we'll move him over. I'm looking for the transforms. We'll move him over. Try to get it as centered as you can. There we go. And now I'm going to click on my main tank again, attach both parts. Now the only thing that we don't have right now is we have open seams, because all we've done is just glued them together, and I can fix the open seams by selecting the polygons right across here. Those are the, or not the polygons, the vertices. Sorry, I said polygon. The vertices that are right at the base, and then we'll go over to this weld command, not target weld, but weld. And what we'll do is bump up the threshold a little bit, and it will glue all those pieces together, right about there, and hit OK. And now, all of those pieces are now glued together, and it's one big solid piece. So if I go back over here, what we've got is solid parts that are hollow inside. You can hit Alt-X, and by moving it around, you can see that they're hollow. Alt-X is the button that puts it into this ghosted mode, and you can see that they're all hollow. And that's what we want to do with our tank, is we want to make these individual pieces. It's also a good reason why we don't want too many polygons in our tank, because it's much easier to do this the lesser amount of polygons you have. So it's kind of a balance. You'll have to figure out what works. If when in doubt, use less polygons, and you can always add more later. Alright, this is another tutorial that deals with bridge, so think of it as bridge part 2, or making new geometry. I'm going to go back to this extended primitives, and this time I'm going to use oil tank again. I use oil tank quite a bit. Actually, I want to drag that out in my front viewport. And I'm going to drag this oil tank out in my front viewport. So there we go. Alright. And then I'm going to, holding down the Shift key and the left mouse button, I'm going to drag out a clone, just one of them. It's going to be a copy. Then I'm going to drag both of these guys and drag them down using the same process. So I'm holding down the Shift button and the left mouse button. Now I've let go of the left mouse button and said OK. And what we end up with, if I hit Zoom Extents All, are 4 capsule type things. I'm also going to go to each viewport and hit the G key and get rid of that grid because I don't need it for this. Now my perspective viewport, I'm going to hit Edged Faces, and I'm then going to convert one of these guys to an editable poly. I don't need to convert all of them because I can attach them from here. So from the editable poly one, I've converted this one to editable poly. I hit attach and attach each one. And you'll see by the bounding box that they're now all one object. That's what we want. Then using polygon, what I'm going to do is select, using the select tool by the way, I'm going to select through these to grab the top polygons. You can see that those are grabbed. And then in my left or front viewport, I'm going to hold down the Alt key, see the little minus by my cursor, and deselect the top and the bottom polygons. So all I have are these polygons there selected. Make sense? And then I'm going to do the same thing in my left viewport. And you'll see why here in a second, why we're doing this. And then using the select tool, holding down Alt, I'm going to deselect the outside pieces. So I'm holding down Alt and deselecting. And you'll see the selections that we end up with are right there. And then I'm going to hit Delete, and I'm going to delete out those polygons. What we're going to do is bridge these all together so that they're all nice and easy to deal with as one separate object, but with connectors running between them. I'm now going to use border, and with border you can just grab around all of them because it's only going to select the borders that are here. See, those red lines have selected the borders or the openings. And then I'll go to bridge using this little button this time. Oh, we just folded it in. I've got too many borders is what's happened. What Max did there, here, let me show you. What it did was it tried to guess how I wanted them connected, and that wasn't going to work. I got a little too fancy. So what I'm going to need to do is go to border again and select each border that connects individually. So I'm holding down Control and left clicking to select those two, and then I'll hit bridge. It makes a bridge. Under segments, I'm going to hit, what do I want? 2, 3? I'm going to hit just 3. And that'll make these two little openings here. I'm going to hit OK, and we're going to do that with each one of these. So if that one didn't make sense, you'll see it 3 more times here. Bridge. You can see it made the openings automatically because my settings are all the same as they used to be, or they were before. There. There. Bridge. And this time I'll be fancy when I select them, and I'll just grab right around here. It'll grab both of those, and I'll say bridge, and that's done. Okay? Now, you can probably guess what we're going to do here. I'm going to go to vertices and grab the vertices that are in between these, go to scale, and as long as my center point is right between them all, which it should be if we haven't done anything, I'm going to scale those out. And I can start to, actually, instead of doing that, let's use a different type of scale. Let's use this little guy right here. This is scale on 2 axes, so it's only going to go up and out. Watch the difference between this one and this one over here in this viewport. See, this one bulges everything out. This one just goes straight out, and that's the one that I want for this particular project. There we go. If you're not happy with how it's distorted these a little bit, which is normal, but if you don't want that, you can go into each one now and just give the one axis a little tug. I need to zoom out a little bit more. Give the one axis a little tug and just scale them down. There we go. And there we go. And now we've made this piece. Don't know what it is, but it would be a good tank piece, I guess, just to show you how bridge works. From this point, you could use bevel, and you could bevel more pieces out of it. You could do whatever it is you want to do. But that's bridge, and that's kind of bridge part 2, so making more complicated objects with bridge. Again, if I hit Alt-X, you'll see that it's all hollow inside there. There's no polygons, and that's what we want for our little tank or game piece. So as you make the game pieces, remember about bridge, and remember to connect all these pieces together.